If you have a fender bender in one of these popular electric vehicles, you might be in for a shocking repair bill. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is our website. You'll learn about us there, our partners, including Deep Discount, who we'll be visiting with later in the broadcast. And you'll learn about TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. 3 shows, pretty quick. If you're already following us, on your podcast platform of choice, it's probably in your feed as an audio show. Welcome to the week.
Hey, Mr. Nash, before the show, if you're watching, you need to, if you usually just listen to us in audio, you've got to go watch the video because I've worn a pretty fashion forward or fashion behind rugby shirt today that John mentioned. Now that I see it on video, I'm not so sure it was the right choice for the show, but it's an old J. Crew rugby shirt with stripes going the other way. Looks like either I'm going to jail or a referee's outfit.
Yeah.
What did you say? It was in a barbershop quartet?
It looked like, or it could be like the pole of a barbershop. Yeah. But hey, J. Crew used to make, I guess they still do. It depends on who shops there, right? Like I haven't shopped at J. Crew in a long time.
Well, my room is so dark where I sit. It's Sherwin-Williams peppercorn, by the way. And which we discovered before everyone else discovered it. And so I thought I wear a black shirt or a green shirt or something, but I thought I should wear a white shirt, and I couldn't find a white quickly enough. But I thought this had white in it, I guess. I don't know.
You got to pop off that background.
Yeah.
I may open a can of worms with this one, but I was preparing for the Deep Discount segment, looking through movies and stuff, and I came across a movie which I had been meaning to see, or maybe I did see it. Came out a few years ago, and it just triggered something because the title will say it all and why it triggered me. Dior and I.
Dior?
Now, is that right? I mean, right? It sounded to me like it should be Dior and me, right?
Dior and me, Dior and I. Well, they were probably from New England.
Or they went to high school where we went to school.
I was up in Connecticut, as you know, last week, and I was watching some of the local, which I always love, local car ads, and it's come down and come talk to me. Who says I? Says I. It's just, so we say.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to do a show where we pick our favorite local car dealership ads from either it's here in the city or upstate or for you down in Delaware. We have, and then there's the ambulance chasers. We have there's a law firm upstate called William Attar. He goes, hurt in a car called William Attar.
Well, we have one down here now. It's there's one that the accent is so bad. It's for Bennett Termite.
Termite?
It's okay. Bennett's Termites, and Richard and I scream every time it comes on because the accent is so mid-Atlantic-y. We can't quite. It's like Bennett Termite. I mean, it's the goofiest pronunciation of stuff. Termites, roaches, and they go through the whole thing, and we just laugh at the language. And then there's a really bad air conditioning HVAC company where all the employees are dressed like women.
Ooh, that is intriguing. Are you serious?
Yeah, and they're pretending they're going to call on Mrs. Snodgrass to fix her heating and air conditioning. She's in a house dress and brooch, bad wig, looks like Mrs. Roper. And she's like, I thought you were going to fix my air conditioning. Yes, we are. We're going to fix it. And so all the employees play these women as well. It actually would be a good segment for you and I to pull
You mean
up
the
our
local
favorite
ad thing? Maybe we somehow throw this into like every other week we do it. But so they're actually either channeling Monty Python, because remember all the Pythons used to dress up as women, the whole bit. But wow, that is see Tim.
Well, they don't even try. And this one, they don't even try to look like you. It's obvious what they're doing, but it's hilarious. But it's not funny, but it's funny because I remember it, and everybody remembers it. I'm sure. How are you going to make HVAC exciting?
Upstate, we used to have Fusillo Ford, and it was everything was huge, huge, and Billy Fusillo, and he'd show up all over. Like he'd show up when it was track season, when Saratoga was in session. He'd show up at some steak restaurant with another guy from Fusillo Ford, and they'd be drinking wine and having steak. It's a free dinner, right? And he's like, we're over here at Tommy's Steakhouse, and where the deals are huge.
Huge. It'd probably have to be once a month segment. A lot of these locals don't have a lot of coin to constantly update commercials. But yeah, there's a couple I could think of right off the bat down here that we scratch our heads when we see them. They're just so ridiculous. There's good money in that local advertising,
yes.
by the way.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
But we'll leave, if somebody
We'll leave
could
it
come
at
in and do it. Yeah.
So the way the show works, we catch up with each other. We have a segment called Caught Our Eye. That's followed by our visit with Deep Discount. We take a quick break. Then we have a business birthday, the only show in the universe that does that. And we end the show with Shop Talk. And as I teased at the beginning of the show, we're going to be talking about some very expensive dent repairs because of the way some electric cars are manufactured. So without further ado, what caught your eye, Mr. Bennett?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So earlier this year, we talked about how there was this cult favorite cookie with the Girl Scouts. It was the Rallies, they called them. Mm-hmm. It was a raspberry cookie, which was a sister cookie to the Thin Mint. So instead of the Thin Mint, which is dipped in chocolate with the mint cookie, this was a raspberry, kind of raspberry tart cookie that was dipped in the same chocolate. And the thing about the Raspberry Rally cookie with the Girl Scouts was that it was only sold online to help. They said they only sold it online because they wanted to enhance the e-commerce sales and entrepreneurial skills of the Girl Scouts. So as everybody knows, the Girl Scouts either went door to door or they set up shop in front of a grocery or something.
Or their mom took the sheet to the office.
Which I always thought was cheating.
Yes, I agree.
By the way, I thought the girls needed to sell. But so they did this one online cookie as what they thought would help as people move into online shopping and buying and help the girls with their skills there. And the cookie took off like crazy. They never said how many they actually made, but the Raspberry Rally cookies sold out last year within a day. They were $5 a box. And then what happened is people were putting them on eBay or other resellers, and they were selling for as much as $30 a box.
Which is insane, but okay.
So this year, they decided not to do that. They're not going to make that cookie. They said they're going to concentrate on actually supplying enough of the other traditional cookies that the Girl Scouts make, and they're not going to do this online Raspberry Rally cookie because that took out all the air of the rest of the cookie sales, and people were too much concentrating on that, or they'd come up and ask for that cookie, and if you didn't have it, they'd move on. So they've gotten rid of that cookie. But they did raise the price of the other cookies. So they said in 2014, the average box, now I didn't even realize this. How much do you think a box of Girl Scout cookies is?
I want to say they're $8 or $9.
Well, they would love you. They used to, I remember them being $3. That was in the early 2000s. Yeah. 2014, 2015, they raised the price somewhere between $4 and $5. Some troops would do $4, some $5. Last year, they went from $5 to $6. In some places, and this year across the board, and all of the different troops across the country, they're going to be $5 to $6, and they said in some cases as much as $7 a box, because they're trying to combat rising production and material costs. So they were talking about how the price of Girl Scout cookies, when they come out in January, when you see them, they're going to be at least $1 more than probably what you paid last year.
And you might get one less cookie, because I noticed that shrinkflation hit the Girl Scout cookies.
I noticed that with candy bars and stuff too lately, because I got some Halloween candy and I thought these candy bars are smaller, same price-ish, but you're right, the shrinkage, right?
Yeah. In the case of the Thin Mints, I remember the tube would move back and forth in the box, and the new ones, it used to be top to bottom. Now they like a couple, and you figure if you get rid of 3 extra cookies per tube, over the entire run, you're like saving a lot on cookies, right?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite cookie? Girl
Thin
Scout
Mints,
cookie?
and then I like what is the one with peanut butter?
The Do-si-dos.
Do-si-dos, yeah.
I like that. In some places called different, but it was like a Samoa cookie, I think they called it. But it was the caramel with coconut on top.
Another favorite of mine. And once people knew I liked that, and if they ever got those, I think it's a purple box, that one. If they got it, it would be given to me because they knew that I would eat it. Yeah.
So look for the cookies. I remember the story when we did it. We were laughing because in some of the states that had legalized cannabis, the Girl Scouts were smart enough to set up tables in front of these cannabis shops and sell it out. Yeah, which is hilarious. So maybe you'll see them.
You and I applauded that business initiative. That's understanding your customer.
Well, I'm sure mom and dad were like, hey, People get the munchies. Head over to the cannabis. Forget the Hannafords or the Giant. Get over to the cannabis dispensary.
So I warned Tim that that caught our eye was going to make him howl with laughter, because we go from the Girl Scout cookies, which is wholesome, to what caught my eye. Nearly naked prostitutes prowl streets in broad daylight.
Where is this? I gotta go.
This comes to us from National City, which is just a little north of San Diego, and the headline reads, "Nearly naked prostitutes prowl streets in broad daylight, but California law ties police hands," says the mayor. Women wearing only G-strings while bending over in front of traffic has become an increasingly common sight in National City, California, as prostitution issues spiral after the implementation of a controversial state law, the city's mayor told Fox Digital News. They're waving to people on the freeway, or, just to be honest with you, they are bending over for the freeway. I don't know how else to put it.
Asking drivers to take another route.
They're showing their wares, says National City Mayor Ron Morrison. So apparently, a law was signed by Governor Newsom back in 2022, Senate Bill 357, which repealed a previous law that banned loitering with the intent to engage in prostitution. So you could be arrested if you were standing on a corner for some amount of time and it was proven you were engaging in soliciting prostitution. The law took effect in January, and Morrison arguing that the moment Newsom's pen touched the paper, pimps in the state... I love the way this is written. Pimps in the state knew they could expand their prostitution ventures with little repercussions from law enforcement. Those that are out there on the street, most of them are wearing less than what you would consider a scanty negligee. It is just flaunting in everybody's face. So it even got to the point where the mayor one day, he said, "I was driving on one of the streets the other day, and there was this young lady standing there in the middle of the street wearing basically a G-string. And that was it, and a couple pasties." But she's right in front of my car. I couldn't move. So I did ask her very politely, "Would you please move out of the street?" And she looked at me and says, "If you don't want to talk to me, you can go around me." She's in a G-string and pasties. Even a local school covered its windows after prostitutes were reportedly found hanging out near its gates. "No, kids, don't look out." And that sentence reminded me of the time we were doing a Christmas show, and the guys in the shade had some woman in, and she had one of those Borat singlets on and the high heels, and
well endowed up top,
quite well endowed.
And Paul Hagen and I were bring her in. She had a sent hat. And John's like, "No, I'm doing my Ross and my
Rankin and Bass Christmas game." I totally was
threw the whole thing off the rails. People wanted to see the Santa or hear the Santa.
To wrap up this article, with prostitution blatantly on the street, other crimes have also followed, including shootings and assaults. And so the mayor is working with the state to try to figure out a legislative solution to this, because apparently it is a problem with these women, basically shopping their wares anywhere they like, right?
So I got a lot of questions, but so one of them would be, in New York City, for instance, I think it's okay for a woman to be topless on the streets, right?
Yes. Yeah. No one really does it, but that's...
No one does it. So I'm wondering if this would encourage the New York ladies that are walking the streets to be topless. I'm wondering if that would happen. The other thing I often wondered about the prostitution in these areas, I wonder why there aren't men out there, too, competing.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Tim... You talk about equal rights, right? So could you imagine what they would be wearing? And
that'd be hilarious.
I would drive off the street, some guy in like a jock strap.
Yeah, you'd be out there doing the whole thing. I know in Nevada it's prostitution or what's the word I'm looking for? Not organized prostitution, but I guess it is. I guess it is organized. Prostitution's okay, right? You can go to a brothel.
Sex workers.
Sex workers, right. Yeah. But I think that's the only state that has legalized it, isn't it?
Yes, I think you're right. And, there is a huge stigma around male prostitution. I mean, I think there's been research done. There's been a couple of books, but it's a world that kind of, it exists, but it's not as seen as obviously as female prostitution. But I thought you would enjoy that after that wholesome little do-si-do.
Girl Scouts are saying a little do-si-dos, and then John's talking about hookers and Nat
City.
That
bending
city
over. Yeah.
outside of San Diego too. Listen, there's no better place, right? We always said you'd want to be a weatherman if you ever wanted to be a weatherman, move to San Diego. What's the weather,
Live in
John?
California.
72 and sunny.
Sunny.
What's the weather
That
tomorrow?
was-
72 and
72
sunny.
and sunny.
Next
That was
week,
the name-
72 and sunny.
72 and sunny. That was the name of an agency out there, right?
Yeah, in Santa Monica, there was an agency called 72 and sunny.
Ad agency.
Yeah.
All right, as many of you folks know, and I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and we would encourage you to visit our site, focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, and that will take you to their site, and they have a lot of stuff. That's games, obviously movies, TV shows, but they also have books, records, vinyl included, games, toys. It's a really great site, and it's a really wonderful brand to work with. This week, Tim, you're going to love this. The sale is Places in the Name. So, if the title has a name or something. And what my favorite thing about this is the landing page has a picture of the back of one of the puppets from Team America.
Oh, gosh.
The World Police. Team America. I don't think they could ever make that again today.
No.
It's one of our favorites. In fact, we were thinking at one point that maybe we're going to do some kind of focus group movie club, and the first thing you had to get was Team America.
Team America. 16 candles, blazing saddles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bob sent me a line yesterday via text, something about going down Bakalakadaka Street. They're going down Bakalakadaka. And the puppets and the strings and the Kim Jong-un puppet. Like, it's just...
I'm not from Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'm not from Hollywood, and I'm not going
to...
Get
in the car, Gary.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Places in the Name sale, what did you pick?
So I will say to our friend Lauren, there are a couple names missing out of this list, I think, because I was looking for them. But Deep Discount has them, but they weren't on sale. So you gotta make sure you check the sale link with Places in the Name. I tend to collect, as you know. I like things that you can either watch over and over again, or particularly documentaries or things that have some sort of historical significance to them. Is usually the sort of discs and things I get. So I went through very deep. I think there were 40-some pages.
Oh, there's a huge amount of pages on this one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got probably almost to the end, and I found this DVD called Britain's Royal Weddings, 1923 to 2005. And this had come out in 2011. It's a special interest documentary by BBC Warner. It's 2 hours long. And essentially it recaps and in concert with the BBC, talks about all the different weddings that had transpired within the royal family, the British royal family, from 1923 to 2005. And so it says it's a fun, intriguing glimpse into a world few of us will ever encounter. It also charts how changing social attitudes and national circumstances have influenced what the public has come to expect from British royal weddings. And so from the Queen Mother through Princess Margaret, it's an entertaining program that captures all the emotion, the excitement, and the style of the previous royal weddings. So it's not going to be William or
no, not the new ones,
Charles,
but
up through
it will
probably,
be probably up to Diana, right?
Diana, or probably Sarah, Ferguson and Andrew, or maybe even Edward as well. But so I thought that was an interesting thing. It's $12.05 as a DVD.
This has Bob written all over it. Yeah. Britain's Royal Weddings.
Yep. So what did you find?
I picked a movie that I love, and it's this director. The movie's called Broadway Danny Rose, and it was directed by Woody Allen, and it stars Mia Farrow, Danny Aiello. It's a great cast. Woody Allen is seemingly out of favor with a lot of people for a lot of reasons, but there was a period of time where he made Hannah and Her Sisters, The Purple Rose of Cairo, Broadway Danny Rose. Like, there's a row of movies that I just adore, and Broadway Danny Rose is one of them because Woody Allen plays a Hollywood a Broadway agent called Broadway Danny Rose, and he has all these weird acts he like represents, like bird acts and all this stuff. And one of his acts becomes very popular and grows in fame. It's Lou Aiello. He plays like a singer. And he tries to get rid of Danny. Lou Aiello's girlfriend is this woman named Tina, who's played by Mia Farrow. It's shot in black and white. It's a really fun film. So I picked Broadway Danny Rose just because I haven't seen it in a while, and it's one of my favorite Woody Allen. There's a bunch of them he did, and this is one of them.
And so you're a Woody Allen fan, huh?
Yeah.
I never was. I don't know why. I just never
It depends. Like Crimes and Misdemeanors. There's, as I said, there's this block of films that for me just kind of, I think that was the pinnacle for him. I mean, obviously Annie Hall and a bunch of other Sleeper, a bunch of other films of his are really famous. But then there was this block that was done in the 90s, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, that just, to me, were like, oh my God, hilarious.
Do you have to be a New York insider sometimes for that?
Sometimes you do, especially with Hannah and her sisters. Yeah, that's a total.
People made that comment about Seinfeld, that people who didn't get it or didn't really love Seinfeld didn't understand the New York,
the New York angle.
Yeah. But I always loved Seinfeld. But So what
and then the release
this
week is Golda. And Golda is about Golda Meir, and it stars Helen Mirren, and it takes place during the Yom Kippur War. So that's when Golda Meir really became, legend in many ways because of how she navigated this incredible problem with the cabinet and a complex relationship with the U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who's played by Liev Schreiber. So I'm curious about this because Helen Mirren, to me, has always been the queen, right? Like she's played Queen Elizabeth and a lot. So to have her play Golda Meir, I think would be interesting. So I'd like to see this as well. That's the release this week.
I would like to see it as well. It's an odd, I shouldn't say it's an odd, the Deep Discount picks these things weeks or months in advance. And so with what's
interesting
happening,
because of what's happening over in the Middle East, yeah.
The 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
With the
good point.
The horrible terrorist attack on Israel is just.
So this would be a good one.
Yeah. So head over to focusgroupradio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo. Start shopping away. As John had mentioned earlier, they've got a sale right now called Places in the Name sale, and you can save up to 50% on some of your favorite film and TV series. And I had picked the British Royal Weddings up to 2005. John picked one of his favorite Woody Allen movies, Broadway, Danny Rose, and the new release this week is Golda. So thanks for supporting Deep Discount, and thanks to them for supporting us here on the Focus Group. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a shop talk, and we do our business birthday, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash here with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the site. You can learn all about Tim and me, as opposed to Dior and I.
Tim and I. Learn all about I.
Now we have listeners who are concerned about our grammar, and I do appreciate it. But some of this is just hardwired, and at this age, I'm wondering if I even want to bother redoing the wiring.
Well, I think I've told you this. So Marianne, our friend Marianne, who went to the same high school we did, she and I went to the
same thing.
We went to the same college, and we had taken a journalism class, and the professor pulls us in and goes, and he hadn't made the connection that we had gone to the same school, but he knew we were both from Connecticut, and he sits us down and goes, you two, where were you during 7th grade grammar? Out to lunch? And she and I are just looking, and he just said how we had, our conjugations were wrong. We just mixed things up differently and tried to break us of the, and I.
The habit.
The habit. But, yeah, we laughed about it. And then when he found out we went to the same high school, he's just like, out to lunch. During grammar class.
I told my mom that recently. She goes, I agree with that, Professor.
Well.
Anyway, here we go with a business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So October 18th, it's also Martina Navratilova's birthday today. I wouldn't say she's a business birthday, though. Yeah, she's 66.
I would say she's business birthday.
Would you?
She's
What was her business?
Well, she was a spokesperson.
Yeah.
She's represented companies. She's had this massive career in tennis. The probably winningest player of the last century, right?
Yeah, she was named one of the top 20 athletes
Yeah.
of the 20th century. I could have used her. I didn't. But I was trying to figure out how she could have been.
I like what you picked.
Sometimes you and I pick career. But we've done this one before, I believe. I was trying to check in the archives, though, and if we did it, it was probably
Had to be
10
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
9 years ago, something like that. But so it's Frederick August Otto Schwarz. So we know him as FAO Schwarz. Schwarz. And so the founder of the famous toy store, and so he was born October 18th, 1936, died 1911 at 74 years old. And there wasn't an awful lot written about him, but they gave a very, what I thought was a very simple synopsis of his life. And essentially, he was born in Germany. The family came to the U.S., and he joined his brothers in working at a stationery store, 1856.
Started in stationery?
So they worked at a Baltimore stationery store, and what would happen then? The German importers, when they bought a lot of their stationery from Europe, and particularly Germany. So the German importers would often send promotional toys in with the stationery. So if you'd ordered stationery, they would send these promotional toys. And so he and his brothers at this Baltimore shop would put displays in the window and notice that the toys began to outsell the stationery. So they left the stationery business, and he and his brothers opened up what they say is the United States' first toy retail operation. Now, there's some debate about this, but so they say there was the first retail store operation called the Toy Bazaar in 1862 in Baltimore. They ended up moving to New York City in 1870 and opened their own store called Schwarz Brothers Importers on Broadway. And they specialized just on imported toys from Europe, including Germany's Steiff bear. Remember that bear everybody wanted?
I was
Is that
going to
how
talk
you say it,
about that,
Steiff
but
or
I'll,
Steve?
yeah.
Is it Steve or
St-
Steiff?
I say Steiff. Some say Steve.
We're probably
yeah.
saying it wrong. They also, and I looked this up and I went down a rabbit hole and spent far too much time on this claim, but they said that they were among the first to hire a Santa for in-store appearances in 1875 during the holiday season. They also were one of the first to develop a mail order catalog to support the stores in 1876.
I
So,
always thought Macy's was the first. But
so I looked it up, and Macy's is claiming it, but there's a store in 10 years earlier that claims it in Boston called the Boston Company store. And they said they hired a Santa in 1860, and Macy's is somewhere around 1862-ish, yet the Herald Square store didn't open until 1901. And then, of course, FAO Schwarz said they did it in 1875. So they're all kind of fighting. And you look it up, and it's all over the map who says they did it. Most are claiming that it was this Boston store, but the Boston Company is not as well known as FAO Schwarz or
No.
Macy's. So they said that, so the store grew. It was very much one of the dings against them was you could get very cool toys and very quality or luxury toys. People sometimes would think it was too expensive. But it had a great impact, they said, on pop culture. In his bio, of course, we talked about movies earlier, but FAO Schwarz was prominent in Big with Tom Hanks, remember?
yeah,
Annie,
the keyboard dance.
That was 1988. Annie in 1999. Toy Story 3 in 2010. The Smurfs in 2011. And an episode of The Simpsons, of all things, in 2019. They sadly filed for bankruptcy in 2003, and all the stores closed. Since then, the brand has been sold, or the name, to multiple owners, including Toys R Us and a Hong Kong-based group, which is hoping to bring and revive the brand back. They said you could still, particularly around New York City, see pop-ups every once in a while, particularly at airport locations. They'll do an FAO Schwarz pop-up. And so they're trying to figure out, there was just an article in Fortune magazine of them trying to figure out how they could revive the brand. We covered a story with the founder of Toys R Us a few weeks ago.
He was a business birthday, you know.
Where they were trying to revive the Toys R Us brand as well. So we'll see what happens with these toy stores. They're saying you're not, overall, I think the gist of the Fortune article was, while you could go to a Walmart or a Target or something to buy toys, it's not the same as a toy store. And so they're hoping that maybe they can revive or at least be smarter in their you don't need 500 of these toy stores. You could probably in major cities do a more targeted,
like a destination store.
Right.
There's an FAO Schwarz at Rockefeller Center. I think it opened a little while ago. It might be I don't think it's a pop-up. It seems to be a little permanent. They have people dressed as the toy soldiers out front. And FAO Schwarz, for me as a kid, I mean, there are many Christmases where every year each one of us kids would get something from FAO Schwarz. It was either a Steiff toy, like I have a stuffed ram, I have a donkey, I have a bear, or I've gotten other toys, but they were European. Like I got this wooden castle one time with this beautiful door with inlaid wood and little soldiers. And it's earlier you said it was primarily they would import these toys, right?
Right.
And that was one of the only stores in the U.S. used to be able to buy European model railroad equipment, the tracks on the cork beds, the whole bit. So for a while there, they really had a corner on a very unique market. I think it's a pretty cool thing, and it's a shame it's not that way anymore. Toys are just different, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very premium toy experience, and I used to, and it was a destination. Toys, the FAO Schwarz in Manhattan. It was right in Times Square, wasn't it?
It used to be, and then they moved up to the General Motors building, the GM building on the corner of Central Park. It was like 58th and 5th Avenue, and that's where they resided for a long time. But you're right. They used to be down more in the department store alley, like Lord & Taylor was down there, the whole bit.
Yeah, it was a destination. I do remember the people out front, and it was just...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it. As a kid, when we got to go, I loved the model railroad floor because there were all these European trains, and they had the little overhead thing with the wires. So different.
Things you wouldn't see.
Yeah. As I mentioned at the top of the show, our shop talk today is about electric repair cars, electric vehicles that have some damage that need to be repaired, and particularly this story is focused on the Rivian, which is a electric pickup truck. Was it the R1T?
Yeah.
And the way the article basically said that someone had a fender bender. It was the back of the truck. They went to the store or a body shop to have it looked at. The repair bill was $40,000 quoted because the way the truck was made, it was a unibody thing, and they would have to literally, take the sunroof out. All this, they have to disassemble the truck, put the new thing in, and reassemble it. Some dent doctor, the dent slayer, saved this guy a $40,000 bill, but other people chimed in with like, "Hey, I've been hit with $37,475 for rear collision." We've also in previous episodes talked about how expensive it is to replace the batteries on these cars. So this is firmly in the target of how this is designed and manufactured. Single casting, they call it, and Tim was in the auto industry for many years, and we've represented auto for a long time. And it's a fascinating thing when manufacturers have to actually build enough pieces of a car for repair and replacement later on.
Right, crash
that's
parts,
why,
they call it.
Yeah, do you think that's why this is so crazy expensive? Because you don't the unit casting is almost the whole car, right?
Yeah, well, they call it gigacasting.
Gigacast.
So usually as a car is assembled, there's lots of workers on a line, even though there's robots. But there's either bolts. Now, Subaru is different. They didn't have a lot of welding. They did more bolts, and which are far better. But the process now with a lot of these electric cars, if they were speeding up the process, they're eliminating welding of joints. And so they do this thing called gigacasting, which used to be done by either people or robots. And so it makes the components out of a huge single cast, as you mentioned, rather than individual pieces or panels. And that's particularly interesting with pickup trucks, which really haven't changed much over the years in terms of the way they're built. And they said what's happened with these trucks like the R1T from Rivian is they're built almost like SUVs, where it's one huge piece of casting, of metal. So if you did get rear-ended or you did bend the fender or something, you don't just get to replace that panel. You've got to replace all the way through to the front roof, as you said, take off the sunroof.
Crazy.
And you can't imagine if you just spent $60,000. These cars are not cheap to begin with. So that to spend $60,000 on a pickup, and then someone tells you, you get rear-ended or you get dinged on the side quarter panel, and they say, "Oh, it's going to be $37,000." Well, why? This is another example of, I think, technology getting way ahead of the market in terms of what people thought they were getting into. And, this huge pivot to electric vehicles and electric cars, they're far more expensive than traditional combustible engine cars. I'm a fan of electric cars. You and I have driven an electric car. I like them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had this discussion with other people who have just recently bought them, and they love them too. They realize they've spent more. They're trying, they're waiting for, it's almost like collecting Social Security early, right? There's going to be a point where, I'm not buying gas. And so I'm making money, quote unquote, or I'm not changing spark plugs or oil filters.
Right. I'm not going to the shop. Yeah.
But the next question is, after you've had your car, if you own it rather than leasing, if you own it after 5 years and the battery starts to degrade, and they say to you, and your car's in good shape, and someone says to you, well, would you like a new battery for $25,000 or $30,000? Are you going to invest that in a 5-year-old car? Now, someone might say, well, it's half the price of what a new one would be. I don't know. People want the latest and greatest. I'm not sure that the market is all sifted out in terms of what electric car ownership is going to be in the long run.
Standards, the grid, charging stations. Wasn't it a month or two ago, Jennifer Granholm, who is she Department of Energy?
Right.
Didn't she try to do some kind of car trip in an electric vehicle, and they would pull into a station to charge, and the thing wasn't operational yet, but it appeared on an app or something. I think it took her longer to get from A to B than she planned. And it just opened her eyes to the fact that, it's patchwork. Right. I know a lot of people who are thrilled with these vehicles because they have a pattern of driving. If it's in their town, they know they have the plug at the house. They have plenty of charge on the car. I see them a lot around here in the city and also upstate. It's this thing, though. I think if you can navigate the charging, it's this idea of battery replacement and or fender bender, which just oof.
Yeah, this fender bender thing was a new one on me. I didn't realize. But then if you look at the way they're built, they're like one solid. Even my my new Tiguan, I looked at it and Richard got it. Somebody sideswiped him, and I thought it was going to be a fortune. Now insurance covered it, but I looked to see where the panel was that they would replace, and there was no panel. It was one huge piece of metal, and I thought either they're going to be really great at what they do, or I don't know how they're going to fix this. Now, it doesn't look like the car has ever been in an accident, but they worked their magic on it. For somebody like you folks, that you're going a straight line, say you're going 120 miles north, or
car makes electric
north,
would make sense. Yeah,
it's perfect, right? Back and forth, back and forth. If you were going to take, for me, if I was going to drive an electric car from here to Connecticut,
you'd have to stop twice,
depends.
probably. Yeah.
Or at least, who knows, right? If I hit traffic, or I'm stuck, or
it's 100
really
degrees
hot,
out,
or it's really cold,
yeah.
And I don't really want to stop somewhere for 45 minutes. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah,
I see people down here all the time just sitting, reading,
waiting for the car to charge.
They're in their book. They're in their car reading. There's like 10 of these Tesla chargers, and everybody's sitting there in the summer reading their book, or kids are running around outside in the parking lot, dirty parking lot. You could make some money if you set up, I saw they were doing some of these comfort stations for electric cars only, where it's a kind of a high-end restaurant, convenience store, and, restrooms, all that sort of thing. I don't know. We'll see what the fallout is.
We'll see how. Well, it needs to evolve. I love the tech and I love the idea, but there's a lot of pieces that need to evolve.
Yep, no, very much so. So if you get an electric car, you have an electric car, let us know. Send us a note at letters@focusgroupradio.com. Let us know what you think of your electric car as we talk about these. Because my next one might be electric, John, I think.
That's you bring up a great point. Like we're really getting to that tipping point where in 3 to 5 years it's going to be a viable choice, a smart one. I mean, it already is a good choice for a lot of people, but I think when it gets a little bit further along, it's going to be the one to go with.
So thanks for joining us today on the Focus Group. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount, of course. Places in the Name sale is what's going on at Deep Discount this week. I picked the Britain's Royal Weddings, 1923 to 2005. John picked Broadway, Danny Rose, and the new release is Golda, which you can find all at Deep Discount. You can get there by going to focusgroupradio.com. While you're there, click on the Deep Discount logo, start shopping away. You'll also find our show, the podcast, our podcast TFG on button there as well. So be sure to follow along at all of our media there on your platform of choice. Remember, if you want to arrive dead, text. I don't know what would, right? Isn't that the? I saw it on the highway, John, like crazy. People swerving all over, and inevitably, and I get aggravated. I go by and I make a face, and I'm trying to give them the finger, and they're just
don't even
and their
pay
faces in the phone. No, faces in the phone, cars swerving all over the place. So if you want to arrive dead, text.
I'll change the slide from don't text and drive, arrive alive.
You can do don't text and drive, arrive alive. The next week I'll do arrive dead, text.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next time on the focus group.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.